Hey, good morning, friends, and welcome back to the Bald Booktuber. My name is Scott. It is April 19th, 2022, which means that it is time to read book 4 of The Dark Tower. This is going to be Wizard and Glass. And much as I did with The Wastelands, I will be vlogging my spoiler-filled thoughts as we go. So, hope you enjoy this with me. Really looking forward to this one. It has every indication that it will be my book of the month, but we'll see how it goes. Also, unrelated, the Cubs are in first place, tied for a share of first place right now. So I know that is vastly important to so many of you. So I wanted to make sure and drop that in there as an important aside. So go Cubs. But I'm just going to let the camera roll. I will jump back in with my thoughts at the end of each chapter or section break, and we'll go from there. So let's get going. So not a lot of insight yet. That was chapter 1, section 1, Beneath the Demon Moon. So this is taking a look at the town of Candleton. And this is taking a look at a obviously post-apocalyptic world. There is a dying robot talking about radiation levels and asking people for their ticket. We have a disgusting rat that's dying and one of the few things living. We've got a deer with 5 legs taking a drink of water that's ultimately killed in the aftermath of Blaine the Mono kind of driving over crazily. So yeah, not a lot of insights yet, but I'm going to keep going with section 2 here. Section 2, so they get Blaine to kind of go away, as it were, and not be present with them. And they start to palaver about what kind of riddles they're going to tell. And they're going to use Jake's book that he obviously got back in the last book of puzzles, as Roland believes that the answer is somewhere in there, versus something about his feast days previously. So they're going to try and each of them will ask a question. Eddie's going to ask the hard question, which is an interesting choice. And Roland obviously tells him, take this seriously, our lives are at stake. And for once, Eddie doesn't have any wisecrack for him, which is fun, I guess. But yeah, we're going to keep going. Section 3 here. All right, section 3 was fun. So they each had a riddle for Blaine. Well, we had Susanna gave the easy riddle, and then a slightly more difficult riddle from Jake. And then the gunslinger had his riddle. They've all been easy enough for me to solve so far, so you know those are pretty easy. And then now it's going to be time for Eddie to do his riddle. When he starts with "What's up, Blaine, my man?" It's yeah, I love Eddie. He's the best. So let's check out section 4 and see what this riddle is and see where we go from here. All right, really cool section in the chapter there. So they decide that Roland is just gonna give him a bunch of the Faraday riddles, which Blaine answers everyone immediately. They decide that if worse comes to worse, Jake is gonna have to find the right riddle in the book. Because there must have been a reason that he was drawn to it, and of course he bought it from that bookseller Calvin Tower. And then we have kind of Susanna says, well, what do Eddie and I do? And you know, Roland says, you guys need to think, and Eddie does. So we get some fun stuff inside his brain and what he's thinking of. I think ultimately the right riddle is going to come from him, but we'll find out. Yeah, a fun first chapter, obviously right where we left off in the Wastelands, and I look forward to chapter 2 now. This chapter is called The Fall of the Hounds, so here we go. All right, so section 1, we find out that Jake's hand, which obviously was damaged in the previous book in the Wastelands, gets actually fixed. And we find out that it was fixed by some first aid on board this train class. They're in the Barony class, I think it's called. And so Blaine lets them know that he can do pretty much anything. He can give Jake an experience with an actress if he so chooses. And somewhere in that sequence, we also find out that Blaine makes a mistake. He asks if Jake wants his first time to be with Edith Bunker, and Edith Bunker isn't a real person. It's played by an actress, I think said Jane Stapleton or something, Judy Stapleton, I don't know. I never watched All in the Family, so I don't know. But that in and of itself gives the group some hope, because obviously Blaine isn't completely infallible. There might be some things that he doesn't know yet, despite his computer knowledge of seemingly everything. So it's giving the group some hope, and we'll see where that goes from here. All right, some really cool description in section 2 about the Falls of the Hounds. So this is kind of a waterfall area where Blaine has to stop to recharge. And it turns out that the process of recharging is that these stone hounds shoot electricity out of their eyes. So, just King having a normal one as usual. All of it makes perfect sense. So yeah, really neat description. There's a point where Blaine cranks up the volume of the waterfall, and for a while Jake thinks it's making him deaf. Susanna's crying. Eddie's trying to comfort her. Just a cool chapter all around. Roland asks a couple more riddles. I think just maybe one more riddle that obviously Blaine gets immediately. And that whole time Roland thought that was a riddle of Quart's own design, but really it was one that Quart seems to have gotten from another world, and brought back and used at the Feast Day riddling competition. So cool stuff. On to section 3. All right, quick one in section 3. So Blaine is finishing up his process of recharging, whatever that means. And while that's happening, the riddles are going to continue. Eddie is still mumbling somewhat incoherently, but I think in this process he'll think of something that ultimately, like I said, is going to be the key to winning this riddling contest. Yeah, just a short one. We'll go on to section 4. All right, cool way there to enter chapter 2. Eddie's kind of still off on his own tangent, doing his own thing, kind of zoned out. So I am anxiously awaiting what he is ultimately going to say that is going to hopefully get the content clear here. Roland is running out of riddles. He tells Jake to be ready with some good riddles in the book. This was all after Blaine had warned them that they're only about an hour out of Topeka. And obviously this is much, much quicker than any of them had expected. And Roland tries to slow down Blaine and say, hey, we may not have time to do all the riddles, especially the good ones. And Blaine just kind of finds that funny and says, you're not going to buy more time that way. So we're on to chapter 3, The Faraday Goose. Aptly titled. Obviously that's, going to mean that they get their lives, one would suspect, through some clever riddle. So can't wait to see where it goes, and we're going to start there right away. All right, cool. So first chapter here. So Eddie is kind of going back through memories of his brother Henry, of course, and growing up and these kinds of things. And he keeps going back to this same kind of scene, I guess, in his mind's eye of the gunslinger Roland and Jake, and Jake trying to start this fire. And eventually we find out that the reason that he keeps going back to this is that there is a riddle at some point that the gunslinger had asked Jake. And so that obviously is the key here. And the final passage sentence is that the tumbler fell into place. So obviously this next section we're going to figure out what that riddle was, and obviously it's going to stump Blaine. So here we go. All right, cool. So stretching it out a little bit, but Eddie is last to go here with his riddle or riddles. So we didn't learn yet what the winning riddle is going to be, but we do have Jake exhausting the last of his riddles in the Riddle-de-Dum book and the one from the Bible involving Samson, which were all easy for Blaine. So it's Eddie's turn. Let's see what happens. All right. So we're inside Eddie's head for that entire section, which is a place I love to be, so that's cool. And you know, it's Eddie getting kind of super confident, and so much that he wants to laugh at Blaine when he says he has a couple riddles. And we still don't know what the riddle is, but I think there's a key there where Roland is talking about a riddle being unsolvable or whatever, so from before, and that was a conversation that happened in the Wastelands. So I think that's what we're going to get here, but we will see. And I think section 4 might be the last one in the chapter here. I'm not sure. There might be one more after that. So let's keep going. Awesome. So section 4, Eddie just has a barrage of just senseless nonsense jokes that he's been hearing his whole life. And Blaine just loses whatever circuitry in mind he has left, and Eddie starts shooting into where the route map was. Blaine's gonna die seemingly. Man, that was a cool chapter. And I guess we have one section left in the overall chapter, but that was a cool section of the chapter anyway. So let's finish it off real quick. But yeah, I'm enjoying this a lot so far. All right, so I just finished up sections 5 and 6 because they were both short. So the Blaine crashes and dies. The cot's head is fine, other than some cuts and bruises. And we're in Topeka, so that's going to be the next chapter, chapter 4. All right, so it seems like the Topeka that they've arrived at is the Topeka of our world, not of Midworld, which is interesting. So Blaine obviously can move between different realities, I guess. And, you know, there's interstate signs and turnpike signs and that kind of stuff that wouldn't exist in Roland's world, which is pretty cool. And Roland has something of a seizure, it would seem, at the end of the section there. And he remembers his Susanna. And I think pretty soon we're going to drift into where he tells his backstory, because I know that's the biggest focus of the book, obviously. So I think that's about where we're going to go here. So we'll see. All right, so Roland promises to tell the story of Susan, I guess, because Suzanne is very curious, obviously, with the name similarity there. And one of the things mentioned, and it goes into kind of tower lore, I guess, is a thinny, which is apparently kind of like a barrier between worlds. So Roland is kind of telling him this is kind of where Midworld ends and Inworld begins. I probably got that wrong, but yeah, something of that nature. So that's the stuff I'm here for. So we're moving on to section 3. All right, so section 3 was cool. So they kind of used the harness that was used to transport Susanna, and they used that to get down off of the back of the train. And at one point, Susanna says that she and the gunslinger need to talk. I don't know if it's just about the fact that she is pregnant with Eddie's baby, or if it's something else entirely, but yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, section 4. All right, so section 4 was awesome. So they're at the station here, and Jake wants to grab a newspaper, and so he doesn't have a quarter, so he asks both Eddie and Susanna for one. Eddie says, "I must have lost my change when I was climbing trees and getting away from murderous robot bears." And Susanna is kind of rummaging around in her purse looking for one, and Roland goes with the shoot and solve the problem that way, and shoots the lock out, and they open it up, and we get a really cool reference from the stand regarding Captain Trips, and wiping out a bunch of people and overcrowding a bunch of hospitals and so forth in the Topeka area. So we're starting to see some multiverse connections. I'm sure there probably were some prior to this, but that's an obvious and very big one, so pretty cool. All right, that's a great finishing spot for today. So we did the epilogue, which was contained in book 3, so I didn't mention it, and then chapters 1 through 4. Really enjoying it so far. Finding out some more cool stuff at that last section in chapter 4 again about the thinnies, and that Roland has happened upon about a half dozen of them in his time. We find out that the Captain Trips version of events didn't exist in Eddie's world, but it may have in either Jake's world or in Susanna's, as they both left their where and when prior to 1986. Eddie came from 1987, and there wasn't a super flu plague at the time there. So really cool stuff. Multiple realities is something I really enjoy reading about. So I'm looking forward to continuing on with the story. I will probably vlog those thoughts as well, but I hope you've enjoyed this so far. I continue to have an amazing time with this series. So that's where we'll end for today. Thanks so much for watching.